So Stacie Sherman is on the podcast today. She's got a brand new book out. I got to tell you, Stacie, you're a great writer. I'm excited to have this conversation. You're one of the more real, I guess, I don't know, the buzzword is vulnerable, but you're kind of, I don't know, you got a little bit of a rawness to how you write. So I really like that. The book is called My Broken Road. And you have 2 children on the spectrum. So obviously the inspiration to the book. Let me ask you, what took you so long to write a book?
Well, I kind of have a full-time job.
Okay.
I've been a journalist for 30 years, and that's kept me very busy. On my side life, I've had a blog, and I've written about my personal life in the blog for like 12 years, I would say. And it's been good for me to keep it separate, but COVID kind of changed my way of thinking a lot, and I kind of realized that keeping my 2 lives separate didn't serve anyone. So I wanted to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. So I decided to take my blog posts and somehow turn them into a book.
Yeah, what
And it
about
was
what about
okay.
COVID changed? You said you kind of changed during COVID. What was it during COVID that you said, I got to combine these 2 streams of your life?
Well, it literally combined my lives in that I was home and working and dealing with 2 special needs kids at the same time. During COVID, my son, who's high functioning, he has Asperger's. He was in college getting his associates, and he was thrown for a loop by COVID. So I found myself helping him pass college. And then my daughter was home with me, which was insane, right? So I found myself, they were trying to teach her by a laptop.
Oh, yeah.
Which was impossible.
Yeah, the old Zoom COVID. We'll just get on a screen and do this. Sure.
Yeah, that was hell. And I felt like there was a need to educate more people about like my reality, because my reality became, I was trying to work full time, and suddenly I was a full-time caretaker, which I never wanted to be. But I had to, and I was a teacher, and I became all these things, and I thought it was really important to open more eyes, and that's what came to be.
So where were you living during COVID, or where do you live now?
I live in New Jersey. At the time, we had a nice big house. I have 2 children, and my husband has 4 children, and we found a lot of us were home.
Yeah, and so you were in New Jersey, so you were like lockdown. I mean, you guys were
completely locked down.
Yeah, okay. I'm in Florida, so we did that for about a beer and a cup of coffee, and then no more lockdown. So you were like,
no, we were locked down for months.
Oh my goodness, I know. I remember I ran into so many people here during COVID because people were literally escaping the northern states. I mean, it sounds like I would be a movie character saying that, right? But people would fly in here, and you'd run into them on the beach or at the beach bars, and they would be like, "Oh my God, I just flew in from Michigan. It's like I've been in prison for 6 months." I'm like, "What?" They would tell me these stories, and I couldn't believe it, But I couldn't imagine, and these, aren't people with special needs kids. So my thought was, oh my gosh, how are special needs parents doing it?
The honest answer is I have no idea how I did it. And I did it. I mean, I'm here.
You're here.
My kids are here. They're not damaged, but I'm forever changed by it. I thought I knew how to do it, right? I'm Miss Autism Mom Expert. And then COVID, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm losing my mind. So writing has always been my therapy, and it became my therapy even more.
But why is it? It's interesting you say that. Why is it that some days we special needs parents, we do I do. I talk myself into, oh, I'm an expert. My son's been diagnosed for 4 years. I know everything. And then right when you say that, God, there'll be an event in the next 72 hours. And you're like, I don't know anything about this. You know what I mean? It's like we talk ourselves into being like expert status, and then something will happen. You're like, yep, back to square one, literally back to square one.
Yeah, if I could give any advice, now my kids are in their 20s, is that I don't know what I know until I know it, and you just muddle through it and you figure it out. And every time you think you know it, you have no idea. And that's probably not a good lesson to talk to your listeners, but it's my reality and it's truth.
Yeah,
You just muddle along and you try and figure it out and do the best you can.
yeah, no, being honest and in this life is I think the only way. We're the other thing about special needs parents though, like we have really good BS detectors. Like I can get 5 minutes into a book and go, nah, no thanks, no, I'm not buying it. So I think you've obviously figured that out. Like I'm just, well, why lie? I mean, why try to put on this pretty face and everything's great. I've run into a lot of people, that autism's a blessing, this and that, and I just listen. That's if it is for you, that's great. I mean, I don't know. I've never felt that way. To me, it's an unbelievable challenge. I think the blessing is what you learn about yourself as a caregiver in that, and then you have to continually tap into that because there is a child that needs you. So there is a blessing in it, but I've never kind of just said that and thought, oh gosh, this is great. It's like I don't want my son to hurt himself. I don't want
Yeah.
him to be in pain. I don't want him to be confused, angry. I don't want any of that. And those are symptoms of autism. And so, my other typical kids don't do that, don't think. And so I would rather him not be in that state where he could be hurt, or emotionally confused, depressed, angry, all the things. What were some of when people write books, I always like this because I would bet the title of your book maybe was not the first title of the book. What were some of the titles you thought about? Why did you decide on the title?
I didn't have too many titles. I've always I did think about Brielle's voice. I'm always saying that Brielle's my daughter, and she's nonverbal, and I am her voice. So I thought about that for a while. But I think My Broken Road and if Rascal Flatts comes looking for me, because that's one of their songs, they can come looking for me. But it's always described my life. And somehow, life just throws you punches and you've no idea where you're going, but somehow you get there and hopefully you're better for it, right? I'm in a second marriage and somehow I ended up with like the most incredible husband the second go around and it worked out. He's incredible with my children. So I've just kind of followed my road and gone wherever way it takes me.
It's important, that I talk about it a lot, the divorce rates of special needs parents. It's impossible to get an accurate number, but I've never seen it lower than the average of typical parents. It's always higher. I've seen it as high as 80%. I talked to an attorney the other day and he's like, 75% would be a very safe number, which is incredible when you think about that. Geez, how, I don't know. I couldn't do it on my own. I just couldn't. And I feel good enough saying that because I don't know how I would. I don't know. The people that do, and it's primarily moms that take the kids, not always. I know some dads that have them. And that's awesome. But I don't know how. I don't know how they do it. I talk about it all the time. You look about the unemployment. Special needs parents get fired all the time. It's a crime. It's terrible. And then the divorce rate, the drug use is through the roof. The costs, are out of control. You think inflation's bad. I hear people talk about inflation and they're upset because, we're like 4 years into this now. And I'm like, well, think about a special needs family. Off the base, their costs are so much higher. The special equipment, the security measures they have to buy, many are out of pocket on therapies and protective measures and stuff. It's outrageous. How have you been able, this is what I liked about your story off the bat. I was in the media for a long time, and so I was kind of interested in your career. You've had a long, successful career. How were you able to juggle that? You've got two kids on the spectrum. You had a divorce, but you've maintained a successful career. I mean, it could not have been easy.
It was not easy. I lucked out because I started very young with a company, and I'm still with them. So 27 years I'm with the same company, and I, they've kind of, I don't know how they keep me sometimes. No, I shouldn't say that. I like to think I'm a hard worker. I've kind of slowly worked my way up from, I was a reporter starting out, and then I became an editor and then a bureau chief, and just keep working my way up and working as hard as I can when I'm at the office. I really try and be at the office, except when the phone rings and it's my daughter's school or something like that. But I just really try and give my all to my job. I love being employed. I could not be a full-time caretaker. I would lose my mind. And I know that, and I know that having a job and a career has made me better at being a mom.
Did you were you upfront with your employers about what you were going through at home, about your situation?
Not really. I mean, I didn't hide it. They knew I had special needs kids, but they have no idea. So my daughter is severe. I mean, she's 22. I'm still taking her to the bathroom. I'm still changing her, all that stuff, like severe. I've never gone into that level of detail until my book.
Yeah.
So if they read my book, and I know a lot of people at my company have read my book, they are getting an awakening. But yeah.
So was there ever a moment in your career where, I mean, your daughter, you know, she needs 24/7 care, that, I don't know, you were on an assignment, you had to do something and you couldn't? I mean, has that ever faced you, or were you the kind of person of, I can't let, you know, like Ghostbusters, don't cross the streams, right? Or was it like, no, any and all means, I will not let this affect my career, because you obviously need your career to care for your daughter. But was there ever a moment where it was like, I can't do this today or this week or whatever?
If I couldn't do it, I remember once they wanted me to cover something overnight, like a budget. I used to cover state budgets and budget negotiations, and I couldn't do it, and I did get written up. But I came to a point or somewhere in my head where I'm like, you know what? I can only do what I can do, and if they don't realize what a good worker I am, I don't know. Like,
Wait, so you
I
couldn't,
can't do what I can't do.
you couldn't do it because you had to care for your daughter.
Yeah,
But did you tell them that? Or you just said,
I
like,
did tell them that.
and you still
I
got
said, I
written
have
up?
kids at home. Yeah. So it was like a complicated thing, but I
Okay.
did get written up.
Okay.
It was the only time I gotten written up. But maybe I don't think I explained to them. I think maybe if I had explained to them more what I was dealing with at home, like maybe they were thinking, why didn't she just leave him with her husband or something like that? And that's
Yeah.
just not so easy for me,
No, well,
right?
it's no, they, and you know, and really the reason why I press you on a little bit is because I get in conversations a lot with parents, who are like, you know, they say, I'm about to lose my job. I can just feel it. And I just say, you got to walk in there and you just, I mean, take you got to take everything. You can't lose your employment. You're going to lose your insurance. You're going to lose everything. And I know it's probably you know, I don't want to say embarrassing, but I mean, you got to go in there and be honest. I just, you know, the reason why I asked you that is just for other people listening that, you know, you long, successful career, even with that, you had a bump in there, right? Where it was like, the typical world is not really meant to understand the special needs world. I don't fault people for that. I really don't, because before I was in this, this was all foreign language to me anyway. I wouldn't know. I don't even know if I've ever worked with anybody, you know, that had special needs kids. I don't remember. If I did, I didn't think much about it and forgot and moved on, which I think is what a lot of the neurotypical people do. I don't fault them for it, but it was just interesting, you know, to hear even though, and I know, and we've talked before this, and you were telling me what a fantastic company, and you guys have had a great relationship and everything like that. Even in that, there was a moment, you know, and it's like that's okay, that's going to happen, but like you said, maybe there's a way to articulate it, you know, a little bit more so that you really need to get people to understand about what's going on at home. Um,
I think you do. I think there's been several times in my career that maybe I didn't explain myself well enough because I didn't want to give details, and I should have. And I had a boss at one point, a single guy, and I had to leave every day at exactly 4. I had to, like, in order to make it all work. And then he just used to start saying, it's 4 o'clock, Stacie's leaving, right? And I felt like I was angry about it, but now looking back at it, I'm like, maybe I just should have explained what I had to go home for, right? He
yeah,
probably thought I had to go home for Oprah, right? I didn't have to go home for that or to make dinner or this and that. I think the more we're talking about it, which is like why I love your show, the more we're talking about it, the more people will understand.
yeah. That's interesting. It's always a guy too in the media business. It's always a guy to make comments like
Mm.
that. I don't know why. It
Yeah.
always is. I don't know. All the women I work with are great. Gosh, some of the guys. That's probably me too at times. But, yeah, that's interesting. And you know, maybe I mean, you want to assume if he knew that he wouldn't have said it. But that probably, because for me it would have done the same. Unconsciously, probably weighed on you a little bit because you're like, man, if you only knew, like, I'm sure in your mind, you're like, I don't want to leave at 4. Trust me, I will stay here till 9 tonight if I didn't have to deal with but you know, I mean, I tell people all the time, I mean, it's so overused, life or death. If you're not where you need to be, I'm telling you, it may not be as dramatic as life or death, but it could be severe injury. It could be elopement. It could be a choking. I mean, it could be a million different things, or it could be going to the bathroom all over yourself and you don't know what you're showing up to. I mean, it is like, no, when you have to do something, like you have to do it. I was working at this radio station in Tampa. And it was my last radio station. And, you know, they hire these big fancy consultants. They're so overpaid. It's crazy to come in. And they talk to all of us, the personalities, and they say, you know, be real, be vulnerable, slice of life. The audience has to be attracted to you. Tell real life stories and stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's no problem. I don't care. And so Cal is going through this diagnosis. And so I start talking about it on the air. Oh, boy. They want you to be so real until it's time to talk about maybe having a special needs kid. This guy was walking around the radio station going, oh, Mark's, he's got like a freak show going on there in the mornings. He's talking about these freak kids. And I'm going, I can't believe you would say that. You know, like all of this real and all these meetings with these consultants and real and slice of life and that. And that's your take on this. So I always tell people, they think they want what they want until they get it. And then it's like, whoa, that's, you know, and somebody said something to me. And it was a country music radio station, but it was kind of a talk show. And somebody said to me, what, people who listen to country music don't have autistic kids? Like, what's wrong with this guy? I started laughing. I said, I guess not. But it's hard, you know, any career, it's hard to find people that understand. But geez, you're almost 3 decades in. You must be, you know, really good at your job and have found a way to really articulate your position. And even so, I think it's great you wrote the book, because I think people are going at your work will probably read. They may never say anything to you, but they might go, wow, I can't believe Stacie's been dealing with all of this.
I've heard that several times since the book came out. I actually got a call about a week and a half ago from the president of the Chamber of Commerce in my state, who I've known for years. I've interviewed him. I've appeared on business panels, but he never knew what I was dealing with at home. And he was like, holy cow, I thought I knew you. Right? Like I thought he actually named me, like he's given me an award in October, so like a woman of inspiration. He was just like blown away that all the stuff that he never knew about me.
What's it like to now? You've done the interviews for 30 years, and now people want to interview you. Is this a little different?
I feel like I'm getting pretty good at it.
Yeah.
This is, you know, I've been writing my whole life, and for the majority, I've been writing about business and politics and finance. And now I'm getting to like a spotlight for the topic that is my heart, right? My kids and autism advocacy are my heart, and I just feel like I'm talking about what I was meant to be talking about. Not that I'm quitting my job, but I'm happy to talk about it, and I am. I've been talking about it more and more um, lately, and I'm thrilled.
It's interesting when you find something that's meaningful and purposeful. Not that your everyday work isn't, but when you start being able to articulate slices of your life. Oh gosh, the radio consultancy got me there. But when you no, but really when you're able to do that, it does kind of it feels a little different, right? Than talking about, like you were talking about a budget meeting or an election or something, right? Because those things come and go. With what you're talking about, it's not coming and going. Real quick, I want to go to a post on your blog, and we're scrolling it now. For those that are watching clips on Instagram Reels and TikTok, it's briellesvoice.wordpress.com. You won't be able to see the scroll. And My Broken Road is on Amazon, by the way. So go scoop that book up. And I'm sure Stacie would love an honest review. I always tell people, just leave an honest review. If it's 3 stars, that's fine. Tell me why. You know what I mean? Just tell me why. I want to hear it. So My Broken Road on Amazon. Stacie Sherman is our guest and the author. So I want to go back to a great post. You had 2 that I thought really were impactful for me. And I think it was titled My Vaccine Hesitancy. It was during COVID. You were going down a road in the post, and I was like, oh boy, this is, and then you did another little road. And so talk a little bit about your perspective on vaccines. And I guess specifically with your kids, the first question I would ask, was there a moment where they were there and then kind of not there? A lot of parents say that, and they do kind of incorporate vaccine talk with that. Other parents go, no, everything was just, this was just kind of very slow or no development. What was it with your kids?
Well, they are as different as can be. Like I said, on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. With my son, who's older, it was just this slowness in development. And then as he got older, it was like this awkwardness. So it was a more, just a slow, like noticing stuff. For my daughter, who was 18 months younger than my son, it was sudden and frightening in that she was starting to talk. She was completely normal. And then I came home and the light was gone from her eyes and I couldn't get her to look at me. It was the most frightening thing. Anyway, you get it. So with my daughter, I just felt in my gut like something must have happened. And I'm a journalist, so I just start reading and reading. I got no answers, but for me, I was like, something environmental had to have contributed to this. Something, like, we're very sensitive. I'm super sensitive. I have to, like, we're sensitive skin, whatever, soap and lotion. I get very, like, if I get a bee bite, it's a bee sting, it's my leg blows up. It's really sensitive to stuff. And so is my son, and so is my daughter. I'm like, why is it completely out of the realm to think that they got some kind of awful allergic reaction to something, right? So I don't have the answers. And I'm asked about this all the time by my family members. My gut says vaccines, only because this happened like 2 weeks after she got a cocktail of vaccines. Do I know it for sure? I don't. But I had stopped vaccinating her after that time. They haven't been vaccinated. And then COVID came and I wanted to get the hell out of my house and I needed normalcy, right? And so I read about it. I read everything I could and I had to weigh the benefits and the risks, and I ended up getting my daughter vaccinated. My son is high functioning, and I talked to him about it because he read my post and that was the first he had heard about it. And so we talked about it and he got the vaccine and he understood my thinking. but he made his own choice.
So, okay. So now listening to that, I'm even more confused, but it's good because a lot of people would say that makes no sense. Like the you were skeptical, and I think you should be, because there was a cocktail of shots, and then
Right.
the event with your daughter, and then this other vaccine, which had far less testing than those other cocktails did. Was it just an evolution of you thinking, well, COVID just could be worse than what could happen if she doesn't get it? I mean, or did you just turn around or over time, because I know you did a lot of research and stuff, and talked to a lot of people, did you just say, well, maybe it wasn't so much the vaccines to begin with?
I can tell you, I have no idea. I mean, my gut told me back then that it was vaccines. My gut still thought the way they gave them out and how young she was, and I like their brains aren't fully developed when they're just so sensitive to things back then. That's what I went with as as researching and as in my gut. I'm like, I'm not going to give her vaccines anymore. But then I got kicked out of some doctor's offices. I got a couple threatening letters at school stuff. And I told myself, if there's a need, right? If there's an epidemic or some sort, then I have to reconsider it because I'm not 100% sure, right? If there was like a measles epidemic and they're like, she can't leave the house unless she has a measles shot, I would think about it and I
Yeah.
would start researching again.
What would
But I
you?
can't for sure say
Yeah,
what
yeah.
caused
No,
it.
that is the frustrating part. There's no doubt. Is that I kind of came up with a saying, because like you, I'll get, and I'm very like I, I'm being pulled to one way based on like research and talking to people. It's hard to be pulled in the other way when they just say, just shut up and follow the rules. And I just go, that's not really how my brain works. I'm sorry. So I kind of came up with this saying of, don't tell me what it isn't if you can't tell me what it is.
Yeah.
And that to me is just, I just and I'll get into conversations with people, and some of them get pretty hot, and I just say, just don't tell me what something is if you just can't tell me what it is. And I think that that's reasonable. I mean, I don't know how much
I think
more.
it's perfect.
Yeah, I don't know how much more reasonable I could be. Looking back at COVID and what we know now, would you have done it again? This is a totally unfair question, but with what we know now, we know more. Of course, time is always, a teacher. Would you have gotten it again?
I don't regret what I did. I think COVID, I didn't see any negative reaction. I got the shot. My daughter got the shot. Everyone got the shot. I didn't see a negative reaction. It was the scariest moment of my life is taking her for that COVID shot.
Your
My husband would tell you I was shaking.
your blog post was so good, and no, really, I mean, because I actually could feel my blood pressure going up as you're going through the story, and you also talk very, very simple, which I mean, that's not an insult. I got to tell you, there are people who overcomplicate this writing thing, and I'm like, you're looking for all of these words and these, they're going through all of these things, and I'm like, please just talk to me like a human so I can really get into
Yeah.
your story. And you did a great job with that. But that post was really unbelievable to me. I really felt what you were feeling. I was shocked at the end of it that you did it. And I mean, I just love that. I just love all the different, the plateaus and the peaks and the valley of the story and the way that you talked about it. Do you, autism has been, I didn't know this 4 years ago when Cal got diagnosed. I really honestly, so I don't know if you're like me, the only thing I knew was Rain Man. I'm kind of like just old enough to know Rain Man. I didn't know anything else about it. And the other thing I really didn't know is how political it has. I mean, this is a hot button, political, divisive. I mean, I'll just put it right there with, whatever, the border, I mean, tax the rich. I mean, it's just there. It's just people just get so, it's crazy to me. I mean, it's just everybody is just so angry. When you got into this, were you familiar with did you know somebody else that had an autistic child, or did you have another relative? Did you know anything about this?
Nothing. Nothing. Nobody. I had no relatives who had autism. And, I have a big family and my two kids, I have two kids, both of them were on the spectrum, but my whole family, nobody. So I walked into a doctor and the doctor's like, well, they're on the spectrum. Like, well, how do you treat that, right? Oh, therapy and this and that. And I'm like, no, that's not good enough. I need to treat this. I need, and it's just, I didn't know anything about autism. So everything I know is reading. And for my reading, you're right, they don't know enough,
Yeah.
right? So they can't tell me that there's no way this, didn't cause this, because the studies have been nowhere near the size and that they should be to rule something out.
Yeah, and there's always, there's a couple of cornerstone things they quote, one or two doctors that have lost their licenses or, making statements. But if you looked at why they lost the license, it really had nothing to do with the statements about autism. It was the way that they collected blood samples. I mean, there's all these little asterisks and all this. And you really, I mean, I talk about it, and I know you have, and you have your 2 a.m. moments. I mean, I have gotten up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a thought and have gone and opened my computer, and, an hour later, my wife, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, I'm losing my mind. To be honest with you, I'm losing, like, I'm thinking through, and it's so, and then just people get angry, and it's just something that I would have never imagined. Are you familiar with I'm going to get off this vaccine, so I promise you, and it's not, but to be honest with you, it is what everybody wants to talk. I mean, they may not say what they want to talk about, but are you familiar with the vaccine court of the United States?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We filed in that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so so when people start coming, oh, don't even, because I'll just say, I don't know. I can't prove it. I don't even want to prove anything to you right now, because these people who usually come at me, like, I don't know them. And so it doesn't really matter really what they think of me. I said, but I have 5 kids. My 4 other kids are going to have kids one day. And I kind of don't want this to happen to them. So I would really like if we figured this out, like, just from a societal, I would really like it. It would be great. So I am interested in the developments and what happens and everything. And when I discovered that there was actually a separate judicial layer to handle vaccine injuries, except autism, I couldn't believe it. And when I bring this up to people, they go, oh, come on, there's no vaccine court. And I'm like, oh, I mean, but to me, I just go, that's unbelievable. There's actually I call it a layer of justice, and it's essentially a tort claim. If you were injured by something, if there was a wrong, you get compensated. And every vaccine, I tell my friends all the time, they're like, oh, I'm going to take my kids to get vaccinated. I said, okay, you're paying an extra 75 cents. They said, what are you talking about? I said, there's a 75-cent surcharge on every vaccine. That extra 75 cents you pay, or your insurance, whatever, goes into the vaccine court bank account, because when other claims come, that's what pays out the injuries. Again, except autism. They will not compensate for that.
So let me give you a little bit of advice for the vaccine court. You can call it anything but autism, right? You want to call it a delay. You want to call it brain damage. You want to call it lead poisoning, as long as you don't call it autism, right? It's frustrating. You're making my blood boil, but they're so adamant, does not call autism, that they've excluded autism, but there's so many things that could be autism-like that have been diagnosed as other things, and it's just those things you can compensate for. Just boggles my mind.
Right. Well, to me, it's just math. I mean, there's not enough money. It's the rates, the diagnosis, it's skyrocketing. They can't. There's 75 cents on every vaccine won't be enough for every autistic. It just won't. So they needed to take that and move that off the table. But anyway, the only reason I talk about this because it's interesting. A lot of people aren't familiar that it's there, and I just tell people, okay, so I know that we want to talk about, there's no way it's this, the government wouldn't do that. Well, there's a reason why we essentially have a separate layer of a justice system. And, there's a reason for, and they're writing checks. They're compensating people. By the way, you don't even pay for your lawyer there. I mean, that's how the government pays for your lawyer in the vaccine court. All of a sudden we have such a great government. I mean, they're paying for our lawyers now. It's unbelievable. So I bring that up because a lot of people don't know about it. Whenever I'm on a podcast or a radio show talking to people about it, I'll get so many messages from people that go, Mark, I don't believe that vaccines have anything to do with autism. And then you talk about the vaccine court, and I'm having a hard time understanding why. And I say, hey, thanks for the feedback. Go research and keep researching. And like I said, I'm not pointing the finger. It's saying this is absolutely, there is just a lot of stuff adding up in this one column. And we've got to ask questions. We got to have conversations about it. The good news is
I'm with you.
I think it's going the other way slowly, Stacie. I do. And you're in the media. I don't know if you feel it. Even this Facebook stuff that came out a couple of days ago, and they said, yeah, the government was pressuring us not to talk too much about, COVID and this and that. And I think people are starting to slowly go, why are we hampering conversations? Why are we silencing, some groups of people? And why would we ever silence special needs parents? I mean, what did we do?
This is, I could talk about this forever, but what gets me is that all these products and items are finally starting to get attention that cause such harm to brains, right? Roundup, baby powder. Now they're talking about red dyes, and that stuff is watch that stuff. But all these things that they wouldn't talk about, right? Oh, no, they're fine. Just remember, doctors used to prescribe cigarettes for anxiety, for anxiety way back when. They don't know. They need to research more. And it points to a bigger problem. You and I could talk about it forever, but it points to a bigger problem in the pharmaceutical industries, and that these products are coming out and they're not sure that they're safe.
So you had another blog post, and I think it was your most recent one, that, again, I just thought, wow, I can relate to that, or I feel this way, but it was about the future. It's called Sudden Detours. And had to be hard to write.
Every blog post I write is hard to write. It's therapy, but it's also exhausting, and it's like spilling my heart out. But I do it because I feel the value. The response I get is incredible. But I wrote about, so my daughter's 22. She's out of the school system, and now she's in adulthood. And I have to face my reality, right? My reality is I'm not going to live forever. And so nobody cares for her like I do. My ex-husband is a very good dad. And I would say, I'm friendly with him. I say it to his face. He's a good dad, but he's a good every other weekend dad. He doesn't know what I deal with on a daily basis. I don't think he could handle it. I don't know anyone who could handle what I handle on a daily basis, or love Brielle like I love Brielle, or care for her. So I have to plan for her life when I'm not here, and it's just overwhelming. But that's what the blog post talked about. I'm starting to open my eyes and start to think about options.
Yeah, you made a very simple fact pattern in your post. She needs a primary caregiver forever. That's me, but I won't live forever. So we have an equation, and at the end of that equation, you're not there, and just like I won't be, my wife won't be for Cal.
Yeah.
And you wrote that
it's hard to think about.
It's the worst.
Right? You're thinking about it. Your son is so young.
Yeah, but people drop dead every day way younger than me. I tell people all the time, it's like, we just don't know. And so, and I worry about, some horrible accident of my wife and I at the same time. I mean, that's honestly my big worry. When we're together, and then it's like, and I try not to think about it, but what would happen? Like, the cops go knock on the door, your parents aren't coming back. I mean, I don't even know what the next hour looks like, much less you know what I mean? It's like those things that eat me up.
That's what keeps you up at night, right? It keeps me up at night.
Yeah, it's that, that's the stuff that when, we get kind of the shots of, or I don't want to say insults, but, sort of like, oh, don't say it's this, don't do that. And I'm like, gosh, if you knew what we thought about all the time, it's like, we're just tired and stressed out and worried. And it's so much worry, it's so much worry. So when you have that moment, and you wrote, she will never be independent, right? So you understand some parents they get to, even I think where Brielle is at age, and I think the parents still say, oh no, I think we're, maybe there's this, maybe there's that. So you've kind of realized that. I mean, do you have like a family member that you trust? I mean, what would be like, it's almost like fantasy football draft pick. Like if you had to pick, like, do you have people that you're like, gosh, I wish they could take this on, but could they take it on? And is it, I even think about his siblings, Cal, who are so great to him, but they need their life. They need their
Yeah.
life too. So I don't
Believe me,
know.
I've thought about this a lot. I have the most amazing husband who's Brielle's stepdad. He's incredible, but that's not his child, right? So I think of it more like he can. I know a lot of people who can do it, but I can't put that. It's a burden. She's a blessing and a burden, right? And I can't put that burden on my husband. And I have a great big family in New Jersey. I've got a brother, I've got aunts and uncles, I've got cousins. And once again, that's a hell of a lot to ask anybody. And I can't do it. I don't know. It's tough for me to ask for help, but I don't know. There's just nobody. I've been asked that. I have gone to special needs attorneys and I'm sitting there. Who are you going to name? I can't do that to anyone. I can't. This is a life that is not for the weak, right? I just can't, which is, why I'm thinking about a residential program.
Yeah, I've been researching that a lot too, and there's some great stories, and then there's some, you'll find something, and you'll just go, well, forget it, and I'm going to do that, and it never ends. The book is My
It's
Broken.
depressing, Mark.
Well, listen, there's no doubt it is parts of it, and again, I just appreciate your your candor in the whole thing. You weren't trying to deliver candy and roses in this book. While even going through a lot of the blog posts, there were plenty of times where you talked about, having your moment and enjoying and being able to really enjoy the moment. And still, after everything you do 24/7, there are moments that you can celebrate and appreciate and things like that. And I think even having a successful career, but more than anything, I think it's just, maybe now you found I don't know, I guess the tone I kind of got a lot of this is you almost felt freed a little by being able to have the freedom to tell your story. You were able to tell your story. I think you've told maybe so many stories. The most important story was yours, and that's not the one you've been telling, but now you are. I don't know. That's just
That's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head.
I don't know if I'm being a good journalist by telling you what you feel.
But you're right. It is that the story that I was meant to tell is the one I'm living, right? And so that's why this book, right now I've sold, I think, about 200 copies. That could be it. I'm good. But I mean, not saying don't buy, but it's not about that. It was about just being able to tell my story.
Yeah, you've done a good job. And then, so you kind of hinted that maybe there's another book on the way, or at least in your mind.
Well, I'm still writing blog posts. So, and I'm going through, right now I'm just going through the very beginning stages of preparing for what comes next. And a lot of people, including people that have kids your son's age, have those questions. And so I think it's neat to be able to write these posts and then maybe to publish it again and share what I go through over the next couple of years, because the next couple of years are probably the most important for Brielle.
Yeah, it's as we start looking at more permanent, not solutions but situations for these kids, and then they obviously become young adults. You start looking for something a little more permanent that maybe could be, a successful outcome when we're gone, the parents and the caregivers. And I just hate thinking about it. I tell people all the time, my deathbed is secured in sadness because I'm going to be not good, and that's terrible. It's terrible to think about, because you watch all the movies and the old guy's on the bed and he's like the memories of like teaching his son to play baseball. And then, he had kids and his grandkids and this and that. And I'm like, oh, that's a great way to die. Beaches. Remember the movie Beaches? I mean, hey, it was sad, but the beach, are you kidding me? Right there. I mean, that's great, but special needs parents, I think the reality is, at least, I can only talk for me, but, I'm not going to be happy. For my 4 other kids, yes, but it'll be a lot to go through, when I'm know that I'm going, if I get that moment. I guess some of us just get the light bulb moment and it's over. But if you get the long-term thing, it's tough. It's tough to think about.
It is. It's tough and it's depressing and it's, but it's you can't do this. I'm giving you some advice. Like, don't let it outweigh all the good, right? Like every day that you're around and learning from your kids and they're learning from you is a beautiful day. I don't know. I really try and do that. As hard as there's days I have some really hard days. And this is not easy on mental health. But the only way I get through it is really trying to focus on the moments, right? The happiness. There's a beautiful moments. I just lie in my bed with my daughter and she just stares at me and kisses me. And there's just beautiful moments. And it's the only way to get through it.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I'm still looking to, I want to do something, so that when it's time to go, I can say, well, at least I did something. And I don't know if that's legislation. I don't know what it is. And I don't want to get too goal oriented. You have to do this, you have to do that. But, I'd like to check a few boxes.
But your radio, your podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it, well, thank you. I mean, we'll get a lot of good feedback and everything. I think I could do more. So I want to do, my big saying lately is really empty the tank. And I know special needs parents would go, are you kidding? Our tank is always empty. And I know, but it's like, I just think we could always do a couple % more. And so that's kind of what I'm in search of. What more can I do to make one thing happen? I don't know what it is. Do I go meet with a president? I don't know. That maybe does nothing. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But it could be as simple as, creating something small in the community. And I don't know. But I think we've got to take this and find our pivot point. We all have skills. We all have talents. For you, it's writing and telling stories and stuff. And for somebody else, it's somebody else. Take that and maybe try to apply it to special needs parents and families and maybe kind of create something good. But I'm a big fan of the book, Stacie, and I appreciate your time. My Broken Road, it's on Amazon. And of course the blogs are great. And I'm excited that that you've stuck with it. You're going to keep going. The tone, the people are really going to kind of get in the moment with you. So it's really cool. briellesvoice.wordpress.com. And we'll have you back on soon, Stacie. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.